Up next, we have Tucker Carlson. Let's roll the tape.
So to see someone lie or speak in a way that's dishonest, but totally unmoored from physical reality is always bewildering. And you're like, but no, that's not, I said the opposite. Right. And then you realize, of course, it's not about you or what you said. It's about something bigger.
Yesterday, Tucker Carlson explained to Dave Smith why he believes his fellow conservatives are trying to get him canceled. So we'll show you a little bit more in a moment. But first, Cenk, your 2 cents, what are they?
Yeah, so look, I've got my issues with Nick Fuentes, but later on in this video, I'm gonna show you some examples from others who have said things worse than Nick Fuentes. Was there a campaign to cancel them? And are they right to try to cancel Tucker by proxy because he talked to Fuentes? I have strong opinions there as well.
All right, so here is more of Tucker Carlson explaining what's actually going on with the right-wing civil war, as people like to call it.
It's about something bigger, and there are a couple of things. I mean, the most obvious on a political level, this is a fight over what happens after Donald Trump. What does the Republican Party look like? Does it actually adopt an America First foreign policy as promised 10 years ago? Or does it maintain its neoconservative posture, which is very unpopular with the public and has borne no fruit? I mean, it's been a disaster on every level for the United States for, since 9/11, at least. But what happens after Trump goes? And that's what this is about. That's why they're vesting the energy in this. That's what the rage is about, because they don't want to lose control of foreign policy. I just can't say that enough. It's about foreign policy. They don't care about domestic policy because they don't care about the United States, but they do care about the US Treasury and the Pentagon, the projection of force on behalf of Israel.
So for the past several days now, we have covered the growing storm of backlash against Tucker Carlson from his own party. Yesterday, Douglas Murray became the latest conservative to do so. He's now infamous for his debate with Dave Smith on Joe Rogan's show, in which Murray tried to argue that Smith can't comment on Israel if he's never been there. Anyway, Murray wrote the following op-ed in the New York Post, and it reads, "Conspiracy kook Tucker Carlson is no conservative and no friend to Charlie Kirk and JD Vance." In the op-ed, Murray points out that Carlson claims to be a friend of both Vance and the late Kirk. In fairness to Murray, Nick Fuentes, who Carlson interviewed last week, was a longtime opponent of Charlie Kirk's, and he's made some genuinely disgusting comments about both JD Vance and Vance's wife, Usha Vance. Here's just one example, take a look.
Why would we let this fat guy who's married to a and works for a gay CIA Fed, why would we let him grow? It's like so insane. The JD Vance operation is in full swing, man. Think about it. Andrew Tate and Bronze Age pervert and all these people for years, all they talk about is going to the gym, being a vitalist, fighting the Matrix, India smells bad, all this kind of. And now they're all in favor of a fat race mixer who's married to a who named his son Vivek, who was mentored by a Jewish neocon and a gay Fed, Peter Thiel, and the guy's in bed with Israel. And that's your guy? And I'm the controlled opposition, really? Your guy is literally a fat gay race trader who married a.
Okay, that was a lot. All right, so now let's watch Tucker Carlson explain the reason why he felt conflicted about bringing Nick Fuentes on and why he ultimately made the decision to do so.
I thought a lot about it for many reasons. And for one, Nick had attacked my family, my father, my wife, one of my children by name, a lot. And so it was hard for me to get over that, For another, as I've said a million times, I thought he was a Fed. But basically, in the end, I decided Nick Fuentes can't be canceled. They've been trying since he was a freshman in college. It doesn't work. In fact, he's gotten bigger. He is enormously talented. Anyone who denies that is lying. And he has like a not fully coherent, but a semi-coherent kind of position. And I would like to hear what it is, because that's kind of my job. And I'm also interested because he's the most influential voice for men under 30 in the United States, more influential than me, more influential than you. I don't think there's any question about that. And I wanted to make the point that I often make and now seems even more important than it ever has, which is that virtue and sin are not transmitted genetically.
Right.
There is no such thing as blood guilt.
Okay, so finally, last one, we're going to end with Tucker Carlson spilling the tea about private conversations that he has had with both Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, who are both now publicly shredding him.
I mean, I talked to, Mark Levin. I talked to him right after Charlie was killed. I called Mark Levin and I called Ben and I said, I don't want to fight at all with you. I'm actually not obsessed with Israel. You clearly are, but I do think we agree on a lot of things and let's not fight. I called them both and I said that. And they were both nice to me about it, very nice. And then immediately started attacking me again. Whatever, they can't help themselves. But Levin did say something amazing to me. He's like, everyone hates Jews. There are Jew haters everywhere. And I'm fighting the Jew haters. And it's like, I mean, I guess if you spend your life on Twitter, you run into a lot of Jew haters, but in real life America, no, that's not actually, most people are really nice. And there is no Nazi movement building in America. That's just fake. And but I really think Levin believes that.
I love that. Hey guys, let's not fight anymore. But I do wonder, Cenk, if all of this infighting, this so-called right-wing Republican civil war, I wonder if this was always just a natural conclusion, the inevitable end for a party that has had so much inherent hypocrisy just baked within it, right? There's a lot of contradictions within the Republican Party and on the right. Perhaps you could say the same about the left, but I think on the right, it's like very, very obvious, very blatant. They say one thing, they do another thing. They'll say one thing one day, they'll say a completely different thing the next day, and then they'll just move on as if nothing has happened or nothing has changed. And I feel like after a certain point, those contradictions are going to start to directly impact one another. And now you have two factions of the party, let's say, roughly two factions that are fighting against each other, and they both believe that they are still right wing. And they're kind of both right because they both represent some version of what the right has become amidst all of these contradictions. I hope that makes sense. What are your thoughts, Cenk?
So first I want to go to one of our members because I want to give him credit because I had forgotten this and it's a great point. D'Angelo Jones wrote in, he's a YouTube member. Wait a minute, didn't Trump invite Kanye and Fuentes to the White House? But they bring out the pitchforks for Tucker. So this is not to just blame Trump for having dinner with Fuentes, and Trump says that he didn't know who Fuentes was at the time. I'm not trying to get back into that. But listen to what D'Angelo is saying. He's saying when Trump did that, and Kanye is obviously an anti-Semite, couldn't get more anti-Semitic than him. Fuentes obviously is. They said it's okay. Trump did it, but it's okay. But when Tucker invites Fuentes, they have a completely different reaction. Think about why. If you wanted to protect Jews against anti-Semites, you would have the same reaction potentially to both, right? But if you only wanted to protect Israel and didn't give a damn about Jewish people, you'd say, oh, since Donald Trump works for Israel, it doesn't matter that he meets with anti-Semites and has dinner with them. Totally fine, we're not worried about it and bothered by it at all, right? But Tucker is against Israel's actions and funding Israel. So all of a sudden we care so much about Israel. I mean Jewish people. Do you? Doesn't look like it. So look, I'm gonna read a critical comment too in the middle of the story because we do the show with you guys and it's okay. I want to hear your voice too. So at TYT.com, one of our members, Scoopster, wrote in, normalizing Tucker, the new segment from TYT. Gross. Okay, Scoopster, let's talk about it, right? So did Tucker Carlson do a defense of Jewish Americans when Fuentes was on with him? Yes. If you say, hey, it wasn't enough, no problem. Okay, but he did. So folks who are saying that he, agreed with Fuentes about the anti-Semitism, they're just lying that he didn't do that. Okay, so by the way, all of Nick Fuentes' fans also saw that Christian defense of individualism and not blaming the Jews. Okay, but no, I know he's Tucker Carlson, so don't give him credit for that. Second of all, so Nick Fuentes is a terrible guy. I think it's very fair to call him a bigot. Obviously, I mean, you just saw it with your own eyes, right? You heard it with your own ears. So, but he is at this point very, very popular. That's why people are freaking out because of how popular he's become. So should no one in media do journalism? No one should talk to him? Look, I'm worried about talking to him. I get it. So it's not like I think, oh no, what's the big deal? But I think journalists should talk to him to find out what this is about, don't you think? Okay, no, I know, but if it's Tucker, don't do it. Okay, guys, if I really thought this was about anti-Semitism, I'd go house on him, right? On Tucker. So Fuentes is clear. He's made himself clear. And if you're a Nick Fuentes fan, don't tell me that he's not bigoted and racist. He says it all the time. He's very proud of it, right? I mean, you just saw it there. Jeet is a racist term for South Asians. So are we supposed to cheer it? Okay, I mean, that's ridiculous. He says, oh yeah, JD Vance was a race mixer. I'm a race mixer. My wife is Chinese and my kids are half Asian, half Turkish. So, okay, what am I supposed to cheer Nick Fuentes? No, I don't cheer him. Okay, now, having said that, let's look at the other side of the coin. And that doesn't mean this side of the coin isn't true, it is true, okay? But two things can be true at the same time. So first I'm gonna start with graphic 3 here. So I get it, this is a little bit older one, and Ben Shapiro's sophisticated enough to cover this up later. But you remember, he did tweet, of course, Israelis like to build, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. This is not a difficult issue, hashtag settlements rock. So, well, that sounds as racist or bigoted as Nick Fuentes. So obviously everybody did a giant campaign to cancel Ben Shapiro, right? Wait, I'm hearing from our producers that no one did that campaign because being bigoted against Arabs and racist against Arabs, no big deal in America. Mainstream media has no issues with it. There was no campaign at all against Ben Shapiro at the time. Okay, well, now let's go to present day. Let's go to Randy Fine. He's a current sitting member of Congress. He said, tell your fellow Muslim terrorists to release the hostages and surrender. He says to Rashida Tlaib, a member of Congress, your fellow Muslim terrorists. And then he says, until then, hashtag starve away. So he's saying we should continue, Israel should continue to starve all of the Palestinians to death, and we should finance it. Now, has Nick Fuentes ever said we should starve all the Jews to death? No, right? Now that doesn't mean that he didn't say other terrible things, he did. But he's never said anything as terrible as Randy Fine. So that's why there's a giant effort in the country to cancel Randy Fine, and anyone that Randy Fine would wait, I'm hearing from producers, there is no such effort at all. They're not trying to censure him, sanction him. Everyone's allowed to talk to him. Piers Morgan had him on the other day. I was on with him. No one said, Cenk, how could you talk to that disgusting genocidal freak? That you should be canceled for talking to Randy Fine. No, because being racist against Arabs, being bigoted against Muslims is considered perfectly acceptable in America. But then they say, if anyone is anti-Semitic against Jewish Americans, I think that's equally bad to anything else. They say, no, that's the one thing that you should all be canceled for. But wait a minute, remember the point that our viewer made earlier. But when Trump did it, that was still fine. When Trump talked about the Nazis in Charlottesville, without getting into the controversy of exactly who he supported, how he supported, but there was actual literal Nazis marching in the streets. But that was less of an issue. And what Trump said about it was a big story, but nobody said you should never talk to Trump and you should can't, etc. Because it wasn't about Israel. This isn't about bigotry and racism. In fact, let's go to one more clip from Randy Fine and see if we could find someone who is clearly more racist than Nick Fuentes.
The fact of the matter is the Palestinian cause is an evil one. The only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
Has Nick Fuentes ever said there's something deeply wrong with the Jewish culture, it must be defeated, and we should nuke it twice? We should try to nuke all the Jews in America. No, he's never said that. That doesn't mean that what he said isn't terrible. I'm gonna say now for the third or fourth time, because people love to do smears, he has said many, many terrible things, but none as terrible as disgusting racist and bigot Randy Fine. Yet there is no campaign to cancel anyone over Randy Fine or talking to Randy Fine. So can you begin to see now, this isn't about people's concern about bigotry. This is a concern about their beloved Israel that's financing almost all of Washington, apparently a ton of the media, and they demand complete loyalty and subservience to Israel. So as Tucker Carlson fights back against that, no, I am not going to attack him for that. Sorry. Like, if you want to have me disagree with him on a million other things, great, I do it all the time on the show, right? But if you say, no, you have to cancel Tucker along with Fuentes, okay, the minute we all cancel every single person who's ever talked to Randy Fine. But that's not gonna happen because the powerful in this country are enormous bigots. They hate Muslim people. They don't really particularly care about Jewish people too. They care about the money that's coming from Israel. But let's get to Douglas Murray as quickly as we can.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about the right is that they have for so long, for the most part, stuck with the same talking points. And I think that's a big part of the reason why they've been able to galvanize so much support amongst Americans. They haven't had as much of the infighting that the left has kind of become notorious for. We love to attack our own. That's not saying anything controversial even to say that. But in media, it does get tricky, especially today, right? The days of corporate mainstream media dictating the narrative are long gone, for better or for worse. We live in a world where people like Nick Fuentes, people like me for that matter, can gain access to the public, can have public platforms, they can gain public support for viewpoints that may or may not be popular in the mainstream, again, for better or for worse. So then, the question becomes, is it something about regulation? Is it about censorship? Or is it about freedom of speech, freedom of press, allowing people to have access to people? And the thing is, I don't necessarily agree that we shouldn't speak to one another, people who are inflammatory, who use racial slurs just very, very casually. But there is the question of platforming these people. The thing is, the argument is always that, they already have a platform, they're already out there. And at some point, especially, Cenk, I know whenever we're putting together these shows, like these are conversations that we have with the production team is, what is the benefit of these stories? And sometimes you kind of have to weigh it, right? Is this something that is now culturally relevant that it would be irresponsible not to speak about? Or are we amplifying a voice that we would rather not be amplified, right? And it's hard because again, it's like how much of that is censorship and how much of that is just like, we're reporting the news to the American people and to our audience, to these people who trust us to report these certain things to them. And the flip side of that, or another aspect of it, I should say, is that the mainstream news, right? They are covering everything pertinent to the White House, to Donald Trump, to Congress, things like that. And they are busy. They are inundated with all these stories. They just don't have a lot of time to talk about the stories that we tend to talk about on these shows and on similar shows. There's just too much out there. So it becomes, a matter of like personal responsibility and also like that line, like where do you draw your personal line or where does your network draw that line as far as like, who are we talking to? How are we talking to them? I do think also that it is important to have people, Cenk, I haven't talked to you since you went on, what was that, Piers Morgan's show with Stephen Miller's wife. I think it was important for the two of you to be on that screen together and to oppose one another that way. Anna, she's also all over on CNN and on various programs talking to people who are opposed to her viewpoints and things like that. And I think it is important to have those conversations and for people to see that there are opposing views out there. So again, it's not a simple answer as far as like, what is the best way forward? Everything is gonna be kind of case by case, but this is the reality of the world that we're living in. AI is now here, so that's going to add another layer of complexity to this problem. But Nick Fuentes, whether we like it or not, he is out there. He does have an audience, and at this point, the things that he says are culturally relevant. So there's that.
Yep. By the way, Douglas Murray implied that that you know what, it's ridiculous to say that Charlie Kirk was turning on Israel. Everyone is lying about it. So I wanted to really, have you been there, Douglas Murray, as he was attacking Tucker Carlson and saying that he should be canceled, of course, in the New York Post, which is basically run by Israel. So I just want to real quick give you two quotes from Charlie Kirk. April 16, 2025, so a little bit before he was murdered. Once anti-Semitism becomes valid grounds to censor, even imprison somebody, there will be frantic efforts to label all kinds of speech as anti-Semitic. The same way the left labeled all kinds of statements as racist to justify silencing their opposition. So it appears that Charlie Kirk disagreed with Douglas Murray and Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and every single person saying that not just Nick Fuentes, but Tucker Carlson should be canceled for the supposed crime of anti-Semitism. So meanwhile, they're all pretending they're on Charlie Kirk's side, and they say, of course, that Charlie Kirk had no concerns about Israel at all. So that's why I wanted to show you this.
I am going to continue to ask the question, a 20-hour response in a country the size of New Jersey. That begs a big explanation, and more importantly, America is significantly underwriting the Israeli government $4 billion a year. We as American taxpayers deserve answers to this. We deserve answers. Also, if we're going to get into a regional or world war based on an intel failure, so we pay for this. What are we buying, right? I got smeared as a Jew hater, an anti-Semite, and conspiracy theorist because I said exactly what I just said. And I refuse to back down despite all the smears thrown at me, because I learned during COVID. I learned when they told us that it came from a bat in the Himalayas. I learned when they told us the vaccine was safe and effective. I learned when they told us that ivermectin was horse paste, that you better keep asking questions because it's the only thing that keeps us free.
And the same people who smeared Charlie Kirk for that are now smearing Tucker Carlson for the same exact thing while pretending to speak for Charlie Kirk. But you just saw it with your own eyes and you heard it with your own ears. So don't let them lie to you. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.